Veronica Chambers, thank you so much for joining me on this show. I want to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about Black History Continued, your series that you're working on.
Sure. So for the last year at the New York Times, we've been building this incredible series called Black History Continued. And the whole idea being that, Black History Month is the shortest month of the year. Black history is American history. And we just thought coming out of 2020 that the coverage that the New York Times does on so many issues would benefit from looking a little bit deeper through the lens of history. So we've done all kinds of things, from Black surfers to looking at how Black History Month came to be, to now this project on HBCUs and homecoming.
So I did not go to an HBCU, but I went to University of Maryland, College Park, which is right up the road from Howard. And I have to say that I partied like I went to an HBCU, because I was always at Howard homecoming and the step shows and everything else that goes into the swag, as you say, of homecomings at HBCUs. So tell us about this upcoming episode and some of the things that you're covering.
Yeah, so, we've been doing these events for Black History Continued all year, and we just thought, what do we want to do for the last event? And we thought we want to do homecoming. And I have to admit, I'm like you, I did not go to an HBCU, but it was my chance to sort of dive into it. And, the really amazing thing is when you look at the history of these colleges, there's a lot of evidence that points to, more than a century after their founding, they are more relevant than ever. So we jumped into it and we made a really rich program that's happening on Wednesday, October 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's just got all kinds of goodness in it. I'm really excited about it.
So talk to us, kind of, level set for those who may not be familiar with the 100-year-old history of HBCUs in this country. Give us a sense of, which ones you covered and featured and the context of their forming.
Sure. So, one of the things when we first started this year, we really sat down with the historians, and Martha Jones, who is an amazing historian at Johns Hopkins. One of the things that she said that really struck us was that she said, at this moment, after the Civil War, you had to build the room for Black excellence. It did not exist. So people like Carter G. Woodson, W.B. Du Bois, all of these people, they got to work to building these schools and institutions, Howard and Hampton and Prairie View, and all the ones that we think of, Spelman, Morehouse. And because, of course, it's hard for people like my daughter, to imagine, but reading and writing was illegal for Black people. So education becomes super important. And some of these schools start out as more technical, but really over the years, they become places where Black excellence thrives. I was looking earlier today at some footage of Black HBCU students in the 1930s and 40s. And you see Charles Drew, who, set up the first blood banks all across the world and in the U.S., not just in the U.S., but in Europe. And you just constantly, they become homes for Black excellence in a way that there is no other home. And so we wanted to celebrate that history. We wanted to celebrate homecoming. And in our program, we film on the Howard campus as well as on the Dillard campus.
As we do, Black people, we always take the hot messery of the moment and make magic with it. And that's exactly what happened at these schools, right? So I think about the way you talk about Black excellence and having to thrive even in the wake of it literacy being illegal, right? Black people not being able to learn how to read and write. And we decided we were going to not only educate ourselves, but then pioneer and have breakthroughs in so many major fields. You just mentioned medicine, with Charles Drew. And I think about Howard University, hospital center, and all the teachers that have come out of Howard Teacher College, etc. Talk to us a little bit about what does Black excellence mean and look like now. You alluded to the fact that even though it's been over a century since these schools started, that they're still hypercritical and relevant to students today in the wake of all the things we're experiencing in America. So I'm interested in what you saw and heard as you were interviewing people on these campuses, while you were talking to folks. Like, why are the professors there? Why are young people still signing up to go to these schools?
Right. So, I mean, you get right to the heart of the matter. I mean, we all know there was a huge moment with our own Nicole Hannah-Jones and Ta-Nehisi Coates announcing that they would be teaching at Howard. And the fact is that so Black excellence is a given now. We know that. But do all of the predominantly white universities create an environment in which Black students thrive? Not always. And so in our program, Nicole Hannah-Jones talks about why she's teaching at Howard, but also what she didn't get herself as an undergraduate student. And I think we're in a really interesting flexion moment where we're asking ourselves, where's the mountaintop? I think a generation ago, the mountaintop felt like a predominantly white school, an Ivy League school. But if you go to those schools and you're not supported and you're not expected to thrive, and if you put so much energy into being a one and only that you're not able to like bring your full genius into what you're doing in the work, I think there are some students who are asking, we're seeing it with student athletes, with student scientists, with student filmmakers and artists and creatives. They're asking themselves, I can get an excellent education in a number of places. Where am I going to thrive and be seen and grow in confidence? And I think that's how these schools are getting a new relevance for the 21st century.
And the other piece of that, and I'm just thinking about, you know, projecting my own personal experience, is that collegiality is one thing, right? You go to a place, you have school spirit, school, you know, pride, whatever. But then there's also something about the familiarity and the culture and the connection point that I think you get at HBCUs, which is why I spent a lot of time hanging out at an HBCU. I also hung out at Hampton quite a bit, in Morgan quite a bit, and Bowie State, because they were all near me, and then I had friends, you know, at other ones. Because you get a family.
Yes. I said I'm a little jealous of you.
You totally get it. I got to do all the things. I partied all over the place. But it is kind of a family vibe when you are a Black person hanging out with, being educated with, kind of growing through all the growing pains of adolescence to adulthood and beyond, when you're in this connection point with community. And so talk to us about homecoming, right? This is really about a celebration in homecoming and the culture of all the things, and how that is such a real, such a critical aspect of going to these universities, because it isn't all just about books. It is about the connection and the spirit and the fun too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things that felt so hard about 2020 was that in a year in which we had so much reckoning around race, so much heartbreak, because of the pandemic, people did not have homecoming to go home to. And unfortunately, this year, because of COVID restrictions, homecoming is also being restricted on a lot of campuses. So what we wanted to create was a virtual space in which we could gather and remember what that was about. And I think, and I really believe that we did. I mean, we're in New Orleans and Lucky Days singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. And, you know, it does not matter how long it's been since I've sung that song, I know all the words. And then we have Nicole Hannah-Jones in Brooklyn talking about HBCUs and Black excellence and the future. I think the Kamala effect, the fact that our vice president went to these schools, talks about the power of these universities in shaping her journey. You know, we just really tried to bring all of it together. I was on the Howard campus with a group of women talking about Black women and sisterhood and how we developed. Jody Patterson, who's a great author and activist, talked about how she went to Spelman and how from a very young age, she grew up with the idea that powerful is more important than pretty. And I think, you know, that's a whole conversation right there. I mean, I just think that the gifts. Oh yeah, absolutely. It was very powerful. And you know, Emil Wilbekin has a great conversation in our piece where he's talking about being the 8th person in his family to go to Hampton. And he said that his mother told him, you can go to any college you want, but your tuition money is going to be at Hampton.
Well, you know, Veronica Chambers, we are looking forward to this special. Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on and joining me to talk about it. It's coming out October 20th, so we're looking forward to seeing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Aisha.